Hey, how's it going everyone? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to the Mega Q&A. A while ago, I asked you to ask me questions and today I have the answers. First one comes from Kian Lafford via Instagram, who says, "What other hobbies do you have? Do they influence your magic in any way? Love the videos." Thank you, Kian. I do have a lot of hobbies, actually. I'm a very hobbyist sort of person. I guess the main one that springs to mind is making videos, although that's kind of obvious because you're watching one right now, but I do make a lot of videos, some of which never see the light of day. And another hobby I have is Lego, although not as much because it is very expensive. Now, does Lego influence my magic in any way? That's an interesting question. Very rarely, to be honest. Most of the time they are very two separate things that never cross over, but once or twice they have. For instance, a while ago, literally years ago, I made a prototype for a magic gimmick out of Lego, just this like contraption that I wanted to build, this little box, and Lego was the perfect tool to kind of make that happen rather than customizing a box out of wood or something. And actually, that's just reminded me, there is a bit of Lego in my magic repertoire, my professional magic repertoire. Essentially, I had to fill out the inside of a card box, and I tried a lot of different ways of doing this, including foam, a couple of different types of foam, but Lego was the best way of doing it because you can make it to fit any size you want. So that has actually influenced my magic in some way. What a great question. Thank you, Kian. Ward Proust says, "What was the moment when you knew you wanted to be a magician?" Another great question. Not a question that I know the exact answer for. There wasn't like a light bulb moment where I was like, yes, this is what I want to do. I do a lot of different things, like I say, making videos, writing. For a while I was a full-time professional videographer. That was something I did for a company, and that was something that I maybe wanted to do independently, but magic's now the goal. I don't know when that exact moment was. If I want to get kind of romantic about it, it was probably when I was a kid and I had the magic set. An interesting question, something I will now be thinking about for a while, so thanks for that. Parkin1000 says, "When will we see the video of The Honest Psychic show on YouTube?" The Honest Psychic was a show I did nearly a year ago at a theatre in Manchester. That will not be on YouTube anytime. It wasn't filmed for that, it was filmed mainly so I could watch it back. There is a video of the full show, but it's not the best video. Like sound quality wise and video quality wise, the camera was very far away, it's very dark. That isn't suitable for public consumption, but hopefully, fingers crossed anyway, I should be getting a show filmed at some point in the future, and that will be available for people to see. Nia Evans says, "BGT?" with a question mark. Questions from YouTube now. BayJMB says, "What's your favorite packet trick?" And to be honest, I got a lot of questions about what's your favorite this, what's your favorite that, and I like those questions, but sometimes it's actually hard to come up with an answer. In terms of favorite packet trick, one that I always kind of default to is the poker test by Eric Casey, which is a great packet trick. But in general, I'm actually not a huge fan of packet tricks. I don't like the idea of bringing out a small amount of cards, and it's like, where's the rest of the deck? Why are you not using the rest of the deck? What's special? What's different about these cards? By the way, feel free to answer any of these questions yourself down in the comments if you have a favorite packet trick. Recommend me some, because I really don't perform that many. Ooga Booga 2744, that's a great username. "Best advice you'd give to someone nervous to take the first step to doing magic gigs?" This is a huge question and something I could make a whole video about, to be honest, and I might do at some point if that's something that people want to see. The best first step to take is ease yourself in gently. Don't jump in at the deep end. What I would say is maybe get a friend of a friend or a friend of a family member, someone who you know but they're a little bit distant, not like a direct friend or relative, to kind of book you for a gig so that they're paying you a reduced fee and you're going through the motions, you're practicing the full process of a magic gig, because doing a magic gig is far more than just knowing the tricks. You can know the tricks and know the patter and the routines and be a good performer, but doing a magic gig, there's kind of an element of business to it which might be completely alien to you. So it will be a great way of practicing that and practicing the full process and kind of how you go about a gig in a way that is safe. And if it messes up, it's not the end of the world because you kind of know them. Hopefully that is a good bit of advice. But again, there's so much that I could talk about in terms of getting gigs in the first place and starting out on that journey, because it's a journey I'm still on. It's a difficult one, but getting started, especially, that's the hardest bit. Next question comes from BayJMB again. Who is your biggest magic influence and what have you Greamed from them. Is that a real word? Greamed? Oh, no, it's not. And please do not Google greamed. That's a surprise. Who is my biggest magic influence? Oh my gosh, I have a lot of magic influences who aren't magicians, which sounds strange, but as soon as you start to have magic influences outside of magic, I think you become a better magician, because if you're just looking at magicians and magic, it's quite a narrow circle. You know, the magic circle, not the magic circle, but the circle of magicians, the world of magicians, is quite a small spotlight. So step outside of that and you're going to find new inspirations and new ideas. So some influences that I do have: Christopher Nolan, Rian Johnson, James Acaster, Ruben Solo, Mitchell and Webb. I mean, I'm literally plucking at everything here. There's a lot of movie directors and comedians. That tends to be, I don't know why, that tends to be sort of where I get my inspiration from. Now, I'm not particularly a comedy magician. That is not how I would describe myself, but in terms of like quickness and wit and scripting and pacing and performance, I think comedians have all of that in bucket loads. So it tends to be where I sort of dive in for inspiration. And movie directors or writers or anyone like that, their structure and their sort of way of telling a story, I think is really, really important for magic. So I get a lot of inspirations from a lot of different people. Those are just 5 that I literally thought of now. There are some massive ones I'm sure I'm forgetting. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Fredo the Wheelchair Guy says, what's the most embarrassing thing that has happened to you when performing magic? I have told the story of my first ever magic gig on YouTube before, where I ended up covered in milk. Things are going to go wrong at your first gig, that's kind of natural, but things still go wrong, of course, and I've had some very embarrassing moments. Some ones that just make me want to crawl up and die. At a gig not too long ago, I asked someone to hold something with finger and thumb like this for the trick to work, and they brought their hand out, and they had no thumb. So I just wanted the earth to swallow me up. That was awful. I've also asked a blind person to watch closely. I knocked over a drink once, really, really badly, just all over a spectator. That was, again, pretty awful. There's not really much you can do in that situation. I've had someone get Sharpie pen on a white dress. Moving on, Candy Quotes asks, what is one thing you wish you did differently in your magic career? Maybe it's go on AGT to get your name out, or just do more shows instead of YouTube, etc. That's a good question. I wish I had started stage performance earlier, because stage performing has only really kind of happened for me in the last year, but it's something I love so much and want to do more of. This year I've done a lot of stage performing, but I want to do more. And I think if I'd started earlier, I'd be in a better place right now. So yeah, I just wish I'd had the confidence to go out there and do it sooner. Favorite magic trick premise? There are a lot to choose from, and any card at any number kind of springs to mind immediately as just a great premise for a trick. Any named card, any number you deal down, it's there. And I know that's kind of overdone. A lot of magicians think it's overdone. But in terms of if we open the floor to any effects, whether it's possible for me or not, a trick I've kind of always wanted to do is take 2 rings from 2 spectators in close-up and link them together perfectly. Making Waves asks, what is the worst gig you have ever done? Unfortunately, this is quite an easy question to answer. I had a horror of a gig about 2 years ago, which was for an adult's birthday party, right? That's what I was told. I was hired for an hour and a half of doing magic for adults. I turn up to the event and it's in this kind of town hall thing they've rented out. It's quite a big building. I go inside and there are about 4 adults and 40 children. Essentially, they had lied to me and said that it was an adult's birthday party so I would agree to the gig, knowing full well that I don't do children's parties. That's not my speciality. I'm not a children's entertainer. They had booked me because they liked my vibe and they wanted me to do their children's birthday party for 40 kids that are all running around and screaming, and there's a clown and there's balloon animals, and I'm here in my suit with my tricks that are very much aimed at adults, that are like card tricks and mind reading and stuff, and I had to just do it. Like, I just kind of tried to do it. I think nowadays, if that happened in present day, I would turn up and I would go, this isn't what I agreed to. Like, you have kind of deceived me here. Here's your money back. I'm not going to perform it. I don't think I would do it now, because I kind of, I've got more self-respect, I suppose. But at the time, I just kind of felt like I had to do it, and so I plowed through doing these tricks for kids who were not interested, they did not care, they did not like the magic. These kids were feral, to be quite honest. They were like rooting through my magic bag and like pulling things out, like, what's this? Show me this trick. And I'm having to like zip it up and be like, no, you can't just, that's my stuff. Like, you can't go through that. Genuinely, it might be my nightmare scenario. There were like jam-covered kids running up to me, like grabbing my props and stuff. And I was just like, what do I do in this situation? Literally, what do I do? So I got through about an hour, maybe not even that, and I just called it. I just knocked it on the head. I was like, I'm so sorry, but I feel like I've done everything I can. The kids don't really care about the magic. And believe it or not, I got a 5-star review from that gig. The client was really happy. They were like, yep, that is exactly what I asked for. A magician who is not suited to the event, who is not happy, who is running away from these kids. 5-star time. So yeah, that happened. Next question comes from Magical Rids 33. How much magic pays you and where you perform? Like where to find an audience for magic? So like I say, not kids' parties. Most of what I perform at is corporate events, weddings, adults' parties, obviously, and themed stuff like, you know, Christmas, Halloween, and so on. That is the majority of what I do, but sometimes I do stage performances, whether that's something I've put on myself or I'm hired by someone else to perform on stage. Like when I did the support act tour, I was hired by Poldark the Hypnotist to be the support act in the first half, but then Edinburgh Fringe was my own thing. So it really varies, is what I'm getting at. There's a lot of different ways I can perform and a lot of different ways I do perform, and how much it pays me. Next question comes from Archie Cox Magic, who says, what is your go-to trick for a social situation and what is your go-to trick for a gigging situation? It varies a lot. Social situation, my go-tos recently have been Archon, which is my any card at any number effect. But if I'm not doing Archon, then this right here is a little EDC mentalism trick, which I can't talk about too much because I'm going to talk about it in a future video, but that has been very much a go-to of mine. And in terms of a gigging situation, something that I found myself doing more and more, as many of you will know on the channel because I've mentioned it a few times and did a whole video about it, signed card routine, honestly, has been a go-to of mine. It is something I'm confident with, it's fun, it's multi-phase, you can kind of adapt it for whatever the situation requires, so that has been a gigging go-to of mine recently, but obviously I have an entire repertoire and it varies massively. What do you see yourself doing in 5 years? Wow. I'm going to keep it quite vague so as to not disappoint myself in 5 years, but hopefully I will be doing more performances, whether it's my full-time job or not, who knows, but hopefully I'll be doing more close-up, more stage, and the Magician Club will be a bigger thing as well. That's kind of something that I'm always growing. I've been growing it for the last 6 years, but something that I want to continue to focus on in the next 5 years. We have got a lot of questions here from Magic111-B4K, great username. Great video, love your channel, thank you very much. For the Q&A, number 1, how do you cover up when the trick fails or they figure out how it's done? 2 different things there. If it fails, often I can rescue it in some way. There will be an out, there will be a backup, there will be something that I can do, right? Whether it's just rescuing it with the toolbox upstairs and just thinking of a method in the moment and doing it quickly. But if they figure out how it's done, that's a different thing entirely, because if they really know how it's done and they confidently announce how it's done, not only have they ruined it for everyone else, they have kind of killed the effect right there and then, because there's not really much you can do. Maybe you want to sort of use that in the next trick and go, oh, you spotted that one, that's great. Let's see, you know, try this one. And almost turn it into a challenge, because if they are that sort of spectator, you may as well play them at their own game and just kind of abandon what you're doing, but here's something else. And the something else, by the way, has got to be absolutely bulletproof. Something that they just will not be able to work out. But another trick you can do is do the same effect again with a different method. So if they call you out on a method, you can do the same effect, but switch the method up in a way that disproves what they're accusing you of. The important thing is to not make them feel stupid. You want to make them feel intelligent, like, yeah, you got it right, that was correct, you caught me, but here's the effect again, and this time you won't know how it's done. So it's like, you're still right, but I can do it another way. And that's kind of fun for everyone. And that was only the first question of this comment. How do I convince to get people to watch my magic? If you are in a gigging situation, just ask and they will probably say yes. If you say, hi, I'm the magician, I've been hired to show you magic, may I? Like, there's very, very few people that will say no in that situation. But if you're just kind of out and about socially and you want to get people to see magic, that is much, much harder. And that is something that I struggle with. If I want to test a trick and maybe I'm on the way to a gig or whatever it is and I want to show a member of the public a trick, that's a much, much harder sell because they don't know that you're any good. They just think you're a random stranger on the street or on the train or wherever. There's no sort of implied contract that you will be good. So in a way, you need to convince them of that very, very early. Or just tell them, like, hi, I'm a professional magician, I'm practicing a new trick, this is what I do, I come up to people and I show people tricks, do you want to see one? And immediately you've told them, like, you're good and you're practicing and this is what you do, and you're kind of promising a good time before it happens. Question number 3, what are your tips for creating your own magic tricks? Again, an entire video in this. There have been some great questions, some of which I will have to revisit in another video. But in terms of creativity when it comes to magic, my very, very abbreviated advice is pick an object and work at it. And what I mean by that is, if I just grab the nearest object, right, which is this mug of tea, this friend's mug, let's say I'm creating a trick with this. I look at the mug, I think about what it does, maybe I want to link something onto the handle, or maybe something travels through the bottom, or maybe I shake it and I can hear something inside, but then there's nothing inside, or maybe it's empty and it fills with tea or whatever, right? Those are just some ideas I'm coming up with now, just in front of the camera. But if I just sit down and I go, what trick shall I come up with? And I've got nothing to base it on, there's too much to think about, right? The playing field is too wide. I need to narrow it. I need to think about a certain object or a certain genre or a certain style, or maybe I have an effect in mind already, and then I'm playing around with other objects to make that effect happen. You need something, you need a starting point, an object, an idea, an inspiration, a quote, a word, something to get you started on the right path. And as soon as you've done that, just start to write down ideas. Last thing they say in their question is, please make more day in the life vids, like going to gigs and the process behind that, or street performing, anything like that. And that is something that I have been thinking about before this comment was written. There's a certain genre in magic that I feel like is missing on YouTube, which is vlogging professional gigs, right? A close-up magician vlogging their gigs, taking you on the journey, and that is something that I have tried and failed at a couple of times, where I've tried to make a video of like a day in the life of a magician, come with me on a gig, that sort of thing. And it's really, really difficult because I never know until I get to a gig whether I'm gonna be allowed to film there. Is that the sort of content that people want to see? Do you want to see what it's like to go on a gig and the reactions I get and film that? Because what I don't want to do is impact on the spectators at the gig, impact on their enjoyment in order for my video. Like, it needs to be beneficial for both parties. So it's something I want to do. I know it's something that other magicians have done with street performing, like Jason Ma and Stephen Bridges. They've done day in the life of a street performer, but that's much less intrusive than close-up magic gigs. So hopefully I find the balance and I'm able to make that content, because believe me, it is something that I want to make. What is your favorite magic movie? Great question. It's The Prestige, without a doubt. I mentioned Christopher Nolan earlier as a magic inspiration. I didn't even think of The Prestige when I said that, but it's a fantastic movie. Not just a magic movie, it's a fantastic movie. It's one of my favorite films ever. If you've not seen it, you will really, really enjoy it, not just for the magic element, which is mostly fictionalized and not very practical and realistic, but it's a film, that's why I enjoy it. I don't want practical and realistic if I'm watching a film. If I wanted that, I'd go and see a documentary. So yeah, The Prestige, all day, every day, fantastic film. The final question comes from Neil Bird, who says, what's your day job, or are you a full-time magician nowadays? No, I am not a full-time magician. I've revealed this before, but I've never actually said what my day job is. My full-time muggle job, I've never revealed what that is, so I think it is about time that I said on YouTube and kind of explained what I do. So my day job is